July 22, 2022. A lavish wedding reception. Champagne glasses clinked in celebration. Laughter filled the air, and cameras captured what appeared to be the beginning of a perfect love story. The bride, Naomi, was radiant, her white gown trailing behind her as she twirled on the dance floor. The groom, Malik, stood proudly by her side, whispering promises of forever. Guests cheered, the music swelled, and for a moment, just a moment, it seemed like nothing could shatter this picture-perfect union. But behind the smiles, behind the vows exchanged just hours earlier, something was waiting. A truth so devastating that by the time the sun rose the next morning, blood would stain the pristine white sheets of their honeymoon suite. And one of them would never be the same again. It started with a kiss. The kind of kiss meant for a bride, but wasn't given to her. A kiss that changed everything. A kiss Naomi was never supposed to see. A few hours after the wedding, Naomi walked down the dimly lit hotel hallway, her heart still fluttering from the excitement of the day. She had dreamed of this moment for years, her wedding night, the beginning of a new chapter. But as she neared the door to their suite, she hesitated. The sound of hushed whispers. Low muffled breaths. The kind of sounds that weren't meant for her ears. With a trembling hand, she turned the knob. What she saw inside sent a chill down her spine. Her husband, her brand new husband, wasn't alone. And what he was doing shattered her world in an instant. What happened next no one saw coming. By the end of the night, a single call to 911 would send shockwaves through the entire city. A crime scene unlike anything the responding officers had witnessed before. A confession so chilling they had to ask her to repeat it twice. Was it an act of passion? A crime fueled by betrayal? Or was there something more to the story, something even Naomi didn't see coming? Tonight, we uncover the shocking truth behind the wedding night that ended in bloodshed. This is the story of Naomi, Malik, and a betrayal that led to an act so brutal. It left an entire community speechless. Naomi had always believed in fairy tales. And on July 22, 2022, she finally got hers. The ceremony was breathtaking, set against the backdrop of a sprawling estate, with towering floral arrangements and golden chandeliers casting a warm glow over the evening. Guests dabbed at their eyes as they watched Malik take Naomi's hands, his voice steady as he vowed to love her forever. Naomi's smile was radiant, her eyes filled with the kind of happiness that only comes once in a lifetime. Malik was everything she had ever wanted. At 28, he had built a successful career in finance, was well respected by his peers, and had a charm that made people gravitate toward him. He was the kind of man others admired, well-spoken, intelligent, and always in control. But there was one person who knew him in a way Naomi never could. Darius, the best man. At 27, Darius was strikingly handsome, tall, confident, with a magnetic presence that made him impossible to ignore. He and Malik had been inseparable for years, their friendship forged long before Naomi entered the picture. To most, their bond was simply the mark of a deep brotherly connection. But for those who looked closely, something about it felt different. As the evening unfolded, the reception was nothing short of spectacular. The laughter of friends and family filled the air as the newlyweds shared their first dance. The floor was packed, music pulsing, glasses clinking in celebration. To everyone in attendance, this was the kind of love story that was meant to last. But for a select few, something felt off. A lingering glance here. A whispered conversation there. The way Malik's eyes would flicker toward Darius, just for a second too long. No one said anything. No one questioned it. But in hindsight, maybe they should have. Because by the time the night was over, the truth would be impossible to ignore. Naomi thought she was walking into her happily ever after. She had no idea that just a few hours later, she would be staring at her husband in a way no bride ever should. And when she did, love wouldn't be the only thing she felt. It was just after midnight when Naomi returned to the honeymoon suite. She had slipped away to change out of her dress, wanting to surprise Malik in something more intimate. Something special for their first night as husband and wife. But as she walked down the hall, she noticed the door to the suite slightly ajar. Confused, she stepped closer, thinking maybe housekeeping had forgotten to lock it properly. She pushed it open gently. And then she saw them. Malik and Darius, locked in an embrace no best man and groom should ever share. Their lips met in a way that spoke of familiarity, not curiosity. This wasn't a first-time mistake. This was something long hidden, long buried, now laid bare in the worst possible moment. Naomi froze. The silk robe she wore felt like a weight dragging her down. Her heart pounded in her ears. Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply turned and walked away. She wandered the hotel halls, her mind racing. Was it real? Was it a dream? Had her entire marriage been a lie? Naomi returned an hour later. The room was quiet. Malik was alone, sitting on the edge of the bed, his hands in his lap, his head low. He didn't speak when she entered. He didn't deny what she had seen. He just whispered, "I was going to tell you. I didn't know how." But it was too late for explanations. Too late for apologies. Something in Naomi had snapped. She moved without thinking, without feeling. Her hands found the heavy crystal vase from the side table, a wedding gift from Malik's aunt. Before she even registered the weight of it in her hands, she brought it crashing down. Again, and again, and again. The screams that followed were heard 2 floors down. By the time hotel security forced the door open, Naomi was on the floor, rocking back and forth, covered in blood, Malik's blood. Darius was gone. And Malik lay still, a pool of red blooming beneath him. At 2:37 a.m., Naomi was taken into custody. Her wedding dress, soaked in blood, lay in a corner of the interrogation room. She wore a hotel robe. Her hands trembled. Her eyes were vacant. Detective Larson entered the room, his expression unreadable. "Tell me what happened, Naomi." And she did. Every detail. Every secret. Every betrayal. She told him about the kiss. About Darius. About the lie that shattered her world. When she finished, she looked him in the eye and said, "I didn't mean to kill him. I just wanted the truth to hurt as much as I did." The case shocked the city. Some saw her as a woman scorned, pushed to the edge by a betrayal too deep to bear. Others saw her as a murderer, unable to handle the truth, choosing violence over heartbreak. But everyone agreed on one thing. This wasn't just a love triangle. This was a love lie. Naomi's trial began on a gray morning in February 2023, 7 months after the blood-soaked night that ended her marriage and Malik's life. The courtroom was packed. On one side sat Malik's family, draped in black, their grief as loud as their silence. On the other, Naomi's mother sat alone, clutching a photograph of her daughter in her wedding gown, untouched, unmarred by the tragedy that followed. Darius was nowhere to be found. The prosecution painted Naomi as calculated, unstable, jealous. They said she had discovered the affair before the wedding and still gone through with it, waiting for the perfect moment to lash out. The defense argued temporary insanity, an emotional collapse brought on by betrayal so deep it stripped away her sense of self. And then came the surveillance footage. Grainy, time-stamped, July 22, 2022, 12:03 a.m. It showed Naomi entering the suite. Then 2 minutes later, stumbling out. Her face pale. Her mouth open in a silent scream. It was the most powerful piece of evidence, not because it proved murder or innocence but because it proved humanity. The moment a heart broke so loudly, it echoed through the screen. When Naomi took the stand, the courtroom held its breath. "I loved Malik," she said, voice trembling. "But he never gave me all of him. I was marrying a shadow and I didn't even know it." Tears fell. Not just from her. From the jury. From strangers in the back row. From those who knew that kind of betrayal all too well. Naomi was sentenced to 8 years in prison for manslaughter. The judge cited emotional trauma, the sudden nature of the act, and her lack of prior criminal history. She didn't fight it. She didn't beg. She just nodded and whispered, "Thank you." Darius was never charged. He fled the country within hours of Malik's death. Some say he's in Spain. Others say Morocco. Naomi never asked. In 2025, Naomi was granted early release for good behavior. She now lives in a small town under a different name, working at a flower shop, never speaking of the night that changed everything. But sometimes, customers say they catch her staring out the window, eyes distant, fingers trembling over rose petals. And in those moments, it's as if the veil has lifted, and behind it still stands a bride in white, covered in blood, whispering a name that no longer belongs to her past. Malik.